I'll imagine like what our ancestors, hunter-gatherer ancestors, like if they came back, what it would be like for them. Because if you think about it, when we were hunters and gatherers, what did we drink? Water?
I'm like, I don't know. It's a good question.
Not Diet Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
But we drank water.
Okay.
That was it, right? I mean,
yeah,
rainwater,
like
right?
We weren't taking our limited supply of berries and turning that into grape juice.
Right. And so we kind of evolved, like when you drink something, it's usually 0 calories, 0 nutrition. It's just like hydration, like in liquid form. But now, we're drinking a ton of calories. And yeah, it's great. It's got like extra nutrients in it that, of course, our body is going to use. But we don't get the same satiety response to it. We're not chewing it. I mean, having your mastication happen, like your mouth chew on something, is part of the appetitive process that tells you, like, oh, guess what? You're going to be full soon. You've been chewing for a while. It's just kind of part of the process.
So would you say if somebody wants to continue to consume smoothies, 1, don't add a ton of stuff in, 2, maybe make sure there's some fat, some protein for satiety, and 3, chew them so that you're actually signaling your brain for satiety? Did I miss anything? Would you change anything there?
I think that that's a good way to think about it. I think that smoothies, like, it's the same with anything else. I think once in a while they're great, but I just think people need to be mindful. I think that they've gotten this like halo of health around them that when you look into it every single day, what am I putting in my smoothie? Like, actually, how many calories are in this thing? How fast am I drinking it? And am I getting full from it? Because you could have a 500-calorie smoothie and be starving, in 30 minutes. Whereas if you sat down and ate that 500 calories worth of contents in your smoothie and like actually chewed it and did the work, right? You had to maybe got to peel it, maybe all this stuff, then it's going to be a different situation. You're not necessarily going to be hungry right away after that.
So the first step that you would say if we're feeling overwhelmed by like, well, there's sugar in everything, what am I doing? Get rid of liquids that we're just mainlining sugar into our bodies. What would be the second thing that you would recommend?
So after the beverages, I usually recommend that people start with the breakfast. And so this is where it's, trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to start my day? How am I going to, bring my brain and my body like back to life with fuel? Because that's essentially what the food we eat, the first thing we eat, is doing to set the stage for the rest of the day. So again, this is where it comes down to figuring out, what kinds of things you like to eat for breakfast. Now, for some people, this is easier because they're already eating like a super healthy breakfast. So maybe it's just making a couple tweaks here and there. Maybe instead of having syrup on their pancakes, they're having a little bit of syrup. Or less syrup than they were having.
Or adding in protein, like having a pancake with like an egg on the side or something like that. Would that also help?
That would help, yeah, because that's going to help boost your satiety. It's going to, create this difference in the balance of your body that maybe is going to make it so you don't feel like you need the sweetness or have all that added sugar.
If we eat simple carbs in the morning, like a pastry or a lot of different types of cereal, are we more likely to crave carbs all day long?
Yes, you're setting the tone of, this dopamine spike from that sugar. And it's really allowing your body to then expect sugar, right? You're upping the threshold. You're upping the game of, what we want in terms of what's going to make us feel good. So something that's going to have like a more sustained release of glucose in our bodies, something that's going to allow us to, feel full, but also feel satisfied. So, something that's like savory. One of the other things, speaking of eggs, because we were just talking about eggs, I've gotten into this like kind of like kitchen sink egg frittata situation where we'll take eggs and I'll basically just add in whatever leftover vegetables. I'll add in different spices like salt, thyme, all like whatever I have lying around. And you could make this like very flavorful, savory egg dish, frittata, bake it in the oven. That's going to leave you feeling satisfied. I think that's really the key, is to find something that you can have in the morning that's going to leave you feeling satisfied, but not in the way that sugar does. Sugar's like a bad boyfriend. It gives you this like feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so great. But then when you realize it actually wasn't that great, like this is not good for me, I really should avoid you. Same with sugar. I feel like we need to just come up with like an alternative so it's still going to make us feel happy and good, but not in the way that sugar can have those negative side effects.
Okay, so we're getting rid of sugary beverages. We're remaking our breakfast to be something that's, one, delicious, which I really think is an important point that I haven't heard people talk about enough. Two, satisfying, which means we're going to chew it. It means there's going to be protein. It means there's going to be fiber in it.
I think it's also having variety. One of the things that people tend to do, which I don't think is a good idea, is to be monotonous with their food. If they're trying to eat healthy, they'll eat the same thing over and over again. That's not a good idea. You really do need to try to change it up and have some variety, because that's the best way to get all the different nutrients we need to, stay healthy, for one, but also you get bored with it, right? And I think that's really part of this, is stimulating yourself with food in a way that's going to be exciting and different, so you're not going to fatigue from it. I think food fatigue is a real thing, and that's why it's important to change it up. So you have to come up with a couple different breakfast ideas. It
and
can't
maybe
just
rotate them.
Absolutely. And just kind of, get a quasi menu going that you can sort of pick and choose from.
And also another point you made is to have it be savory, because again, the flavor of sweet is going to kick off those neural processes that are going to make you crave more sweet all day long. So having a savory breakfast with all these different checklists. What would be the third thing that you would have people do if they were trying to reduce sugars, but they were overwhelmed by where to start?
Well, the third thing I would recommend would be to focus on the snacks. The snacks are where people tend to just kind of say, oh, let me grab this, or let me, pop in the store and grab a quick snack. I suddenly am hungry. I didn't bring anything with me. And so I think, planning out what kinds of snacks you're going to have, and whether or not you're going to be that person who's carrying their snacks with them everywhere, just in case, or whether or not you're going to be able to then figure out, okay, if I have to pop in a convenience store because, I'm just suddenly very hungry, I need something to eat. What am I going to pick in this store to eat where there might not be a lot of healthy options? So figuring out where you fall when it comes to snacks and figuring out the healthy snack options is extremely important, because that is what I think a lot of people end up struggling with, is, getting in those sort of last minute moments where they're unprepared and then not having a plan.
What's your go-to in a convenience store?
Usually it's a bag of nuts, but you have to watch, because a lot of them will have sugar in them. So you have to just check the label. If it's because I just maybe let too much time go between meals, or I got delayed and now I'm not going to get home until late for dinner, it's about making it so I can sustain myself until I can have my healthy meal. I feel like that's the point of the snack. I look at snacks like that. They're like a bridge to me getting to the healthy meal that I'm going to get. I think a lot of people look at snacks like it's fun time. Come on, let's have a snack. Let's have cookies. Let's have chips. If you're looking at snacks that way, that's great. But figure out a way to make them have less sugar in it, so that if your fun time snacks are what you want to have, just try to have it so that they're not loaded with added sugar.
How do you suggest people approach nutrient-dense foods that have a lot of sugar in them? Things like berries, bananas, sweet potatoes. We think of these foods as really, really good for us, but they clearly have sugar in them.
They have sugar, but they don't have added sugar. So they have sugar, but they also have fiber. They also have other nutrients that balance out the effect that the sugar that's naturally occurring in them is having on our body. And they're also packaged in a way that they don't have this ridiculous ratio of sugar to other things in them, which we see with all the processed foods that are out there. I think you should be eating them, not drinking them. So that's why I think it's important to make sure you're not doing too much of that with smoothies. It's also important to make sure you're not juicing them, because again, when you juice something, and I know a lot of people like juice and it's great because it tastes yummy, but guess what? It's also just stripped out all the fiber and a lot of the other nutrients that you would actually get from eating the whole fruit. And so you're really just kind of left with the sugar that's in the fruit, and you kind of threw away all the good stuff.
So you're not demonizing all of these delicious pieces of produce and naturally occurring foods that have sugar in them in any way?
Absolutely not. I actually elevate those things, because I think that for people who are struggling with a sugar addiction, for people who are, craving the added sugar and the sweets and the cakes, those can be the best help for them. If you're craving, ice cream, and I know it sounds like, okay, if I want my ice cream, I want my ice cream, right? But if you're really looking to just kind of take the edge off of a sugar craving, if you have, a bowl of berries, that's going to help, right? Because it's going to have some sugar in it. It's going to release the sugar in your bloodstream. It's going to get to make you feel good. Maybe not to the extent that the spike of sugar would from an ice cream, but again, it can help you. It can really serve as a crutch, I think, for people who, kind of just need a little bit of something that's sweet in order to feel satisfied.
I think what you just said is so important. So these foods are going to have the sugar, but they're not going to have the spiky dopaminergic effect. They're not going to have the spiky metabolic effect. They're going to be much more sustained. So it's going to literally impact your brain and body differently.
Absolutely. Think about something like Pop-Tarts, for example, right? If you buy like Pop-Tarts in the store, yeah, they have a ton of sugar in them, but you have to keep in mind a lot of these foods with added sugar, they also have all of this extra stuff in them that's making the sugar even like sexier. So they have, for example, Pop-Tarts, they have carrauba wax in them. That is something that has no nutritional value. It's literally added to the product so that it'll melt in your mouth when it hits your tongue. And so you have this like mouth feel, so that it like that sensation of like, oh my gosh, this is literally melting in my mouth. This feels so good. That's why it's put in there. So that's going to make the sugar even more delicious. And then you layer onto that the colors of the, different sprinkles and the dyes that are put in to make things look a pretty way. That all plays a role in the pleasurable aspects that we get from sugar. So it's not just, a packet of sugar, right? It's the window dressing around it that even makes it more desirable. And that's part of the process that we need to be aware of. And you don't get that with a banana, right? There's no it's just a banana. It's literally a banana. You peel it, it's over. There's nothing beautiful about it other than it's just a banana. But when we look at these other processed foods with the sugar, it's not just the sugar. There's all this other stuff that goes along with it to make the sugar even more potent